At 3 a.m., my granddaughter revealed a shocking discovery at home that transformed everything. Sarah's heart raced, tangled in the disorientation of sleep, when she heard the unmistakable shuffle of movement above. A jolt of panic shot through her as she registered the peculiar flickering light spilling from the attic. Lily, her curious 12-year-old daughter, was rumored to be an explorer of the imagination, but this was different. Clutching her blanket tightly, Sarah wrestled with the urge to intervene. Was Lily facing another nightmare? But as she blinked against the darkness, a flicker of defiance stirred within her. Sarah cautiously climbed the creaky staircase to the attic, her mind racing with thoughts of wayward dreams and forgotten fears. She reached the top, only to find her daughter fascinated by a dusty old trunk nestled among cobwebs. The journal resting on Lily's lap wasn't merely paper and words. It was a connection to the past, a tether to the life of Sarah's late mother, Jane. The moment felt surreal, as if time was unraveling, exposing raw emotions beneath layers of protective armor. "Mom," Lily murmured, eyes wide with wonder. "Look at this." As Sarah looked closer, a surge of emotions washed over her. The journal was filled with remnants of a life marked by creativity and struggle, which resonated so deeply within her that it almost hurt. Jane had chased dreams through brushes and paints, creating art during the Great Depression when despair loomed heavy like a dark cloud. While Sarah valued education, there was something compelling about Jane's escape into art, vibrant hues expressed in soft strokes that invited the soul to breathe. Yet the irony twisted in Sarah's gut. This passion had come at a perilous cost, something Sarah feared might echo in Lily's future. She felt herself brimming with contradictory emotions, a mixture of nostalgia, pride, and fear. What if Lily wanted to pursue art? Didn't Sarah know all too well the hardship of unstable financial security? She had fought tooth and nail for her teaching position, using education as a bulwark against the harsh realities of life. The pressure mounted in her chest, questioning where she could support Lily without suffocating her burgeoning passions. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The heavy stillness of the attic enveloped them. Sarah's breathing quickened as she watched Lily lose herself in the pages. How had Jane built a life in a world where art was a fragile dream? Would Lily be prepared for that kind of heartache? The emotional turmoil steeped deeper within Sarah. She admired her mother's artistry and resilience, yet the fear of Lily facing what Jane endured gnawed at her conscience. As they embraced Jane's creative legacy, the community's cynical views on art crept into Sarah's consciousness. A potent mix of despair and determination overwhelmed her. She feared Lily would find isolation in a pursuit deemed unworthy by their neighbors. Could she allow a dream to flourish in a world that didn't recognize its value? As pressure mounted, the cyclical echoes of past struggles clawed at them. Just as they prepared to share their findings with the community, Sarah caught a glimpse of a familiar face among the crowd. Someone who could unravel their fears with a single dismissive word. Her resolve shook, drowning under the weight of judgment and the fear of her daughter following in footsteps bound to hardship. The journey to unveil their truth hung suspended in the air, ripe with uncertainty. Would they break free from an inherited legacy of doubt? Or would the specter of the past imprison them both in ways they couldn't yet comprehend? As dawn broke, the attic was filled with a faint light, yet Sarah felt eclipsed by shadows of doubt. The journal lay between her and Lily, a bridge tethering them to a complex legacy. There was a decision brewing, one that could either lift them toward the sunlight or plunge them further into darkness. In that suffocating moment of uncertainty, Sarah felt the weight of her career as an educator bearing down on her. She was lauded for her structured lessons and emphasis on stability. Yet, therein lay the paradox. How had she become the very embodiment of everything her mother had rebelled against? The decision to embrace a steadfast life had come at a significant price, one she had unknowingly passed down to Lily. Should she be the fence that restricted her daughter's passions, or the gate that opened up new worlds? "Mom," Lily's voice broke through the haze, "can we keep it?" "Of course," Sarah replied, but her heart was racing not with reassurance, but with foreboding. This journal, these dreams, they unleashed a tempest of possibilities that could disrupt their carefully maintained equilibrium. The irony gnawed at her. While she wanted to support Lily, she had devoted her life to ensuring they wouldn't struggle like Jane. That fear paralyzed her. Curling her fingers around the journal, Sarah's instinct was to shield Lily from the turbulent waters of a potentially painful pursuit. Yet staring into her daughter's expectant gaze, she felt the urge to break free from the cycle of fear and doubt that had confined them both. What if, just this once, she stepped away from her own doctrine of pragmatism? Could it be possible that embracing risk for the sake of passion might lead to a richer life? Driven by that glimmer of hope, Sarah proposed a plan. "Let's dedicate time to explore this. Maybe we can turn the attic into a studio where we paint together. We'll create, and if it doesn't work out, we'll find another path." Lily's face lit up with a mix of joy and gratitude, but that flicker of excitement in Sarah's heart was quickly overshadowed by the fear of failure. Could they truly cultivate creativity when the world outside their windows shouted practicality? As preparation began, Sarah rummaged through old paint tubes and brushes, remnants of her mother's era. Each stroke of paint became a hesitance, an intricate dance between hope and trepidation. She found herself engrossed in Lily's praises and adult wisdom, yet moments of panic still punctured her resolve. How would she justify this creative endeavor? How would she silence the doubts in her own mind? Sarah started painting alongside Lily, losing herself in the colors as they intermingled. As the day unfolded, each brushstroke became a conversation, a channel for their hopes and fears. Art went beyond images. It symbolized the acknowledgement of their shared vulnerability, of allowing passion to exist in a world governed by caution. But then, an alarming thought emerged, uninvited yet compelling. Would this pursuit draw them closer, or expose cracks in their relationship? The attic, once a space of forgotten memories, transformed into a sanctuary of discovery. Yet it was laced with potential conflict. For every insight gained, new insecurities bubbled to the surface. Just as they breathed in the scent of turpentine and oils, an unexpected knock on the door shattered their moment of peace. A neighbor's voice carried through, filled with skepticism. "What are you doing up there making a mess?" Sarah's stomach twisted. Here was the embodiment of her greatest fear, the judgment she had tried so hard to shield Lily from. Would she stand her ground, or would this moment stack the odds against everything they had begun to build together? The moment of confrontation loomed closer, and with it, the inevitability of choices yet to be made pulsed through her veins. How she would navigate this reflection of her past would determine not just their immediate future, but the legacy they would leave behind. It was time to face the music. Would she fight for this new path, or would she retreat back into the shadows of her fears, letting judgment dictate their dreams? The knock reverberated in Sarah's chest, a jarring reminder of the scrutiny lurking in every corner of her life. She felt the weight of her neighbor's words like an unsheathed dagger aimed at their fledgling dreams. The attic, once a realm of possibilities, now seemed to shrink under an impending judgment. "Are you going to answer it?" Lily whispered, her voice trembling with uncertainty. The innocence in her question struck Sarah like a lightning bolt. This was not just about art, it was about empowerment and self-definition. Every moment mattered, and it was time to decide what kind of legacy she would create. With slow, measured steps, Sarah moved toward the door. Each footfall echoed her internal conflict, the need to maintain control versus the undeniable urge to embrace her daughter's blossoming creativity. The knot in her stomach tightened. What if this neighbor became a reminder of the life she was trying to escape? What if her return to an artistic life was considered just another eccentricity, a path of impracticality that would leave Lily stranded? She opened the door, forcing a smile even as her heart raced. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson. We're just painting. You know, just exploring some creativity." Mrs. Thompson's piercing gaze swept over Sarah, landing on Lily's paint-splattered hands. "Don't you think you should be focusing on school instead?" There was disbelief and concern lacing her words. The veneration Sarah had struggled to foster as a dedicated educator now felt like a trap. What if she didn't need permission or validation from others? She felt a fire igniting inside her, a desire not just to defend their endeavor, but to redefine what success looked like. "We are focusing on school, but this is important for Lily's development," Sarah replied, the steadiness in her voice surprising even herself. "Creativity? What a mess," Mrs. Thompson sniffed, adjusting her glasses. "You don't want her neglecting her studies, do you?" But a remarkable shift rippled through Sarah in that moment. Could she turn dissent into an opportunity? The fear of disapproval began to dissolve, replaced by a steely conviction. Mess is part of the process. It's how we learn and grow. "Oh, well," the neighbor faltered for a moment, befuddled by Sarah's unexpected assertiveness. As she turned to leave, their worlds momentarily collided in the silence that followed. Sarah realized that by standing up not only for herself, but for Lily, she could redefine the narrative. After closing the door, a wave of adrenaline surged through Sarah. "Mom, that was amazing!" Lily beamed with pride. "You really told her." "That felt good," Sarah admitted, the thrill of the confrontation beginning to seep into her bones. Perhaps she didn't need to always play it safe. As they returned to their canvas, something had shifted in Sarah's approach. Each brushstroke became more intentional, guided by a new conviction. They could embrace both art and education. Creativity needn't undermine stability, it could elevate it. This was a message she could carry into her classroom, one that had been tucked away like the attic's forgotten relics. With every splash of paint, Sarah could feel the duality of her identity beginning to harmonize. No longer would she adhere only to the safety net of structured lessons. She would weave creativity into her professional ethos. As they painted, ideas began to flow. Lessons that blended the rigors of education with the freedom of artistic expression. But the more she painted, the heavier the realization weighed on her. Would she be able to implement these ideas in the stifling formality of her school? Would her colleagues embrace this shift, or would they resist with the same skepticism as Mrs. Thompson? With a mixture of excitement and dread, Sarah looked over at Lily, whose eyes were bright with inspiration. What if we entered an art show? The thought fell between them like a challenge, igniting fresh possibilities. The notion of exposing their art to the public brought a flurry of uncertainty back. The prospect of judgment loomed larger than ever. Would they be ready to take that leap? These questions held promise and fear in equal measure, and as they dived back into their painting, Sarah realized that this journey was only just beginning. How far would she go to shatter the limitations placed upon them? As uncertainty blended with anticipation, Sarah made her first conscious decision to release the ties of safety. The next phase awaited. She had to confront not only her fears, but also the expectations reigning over their lives. What if, in the following days, she pursued this dream further and faced a pivotal choice that could alter the trajectory of everything? The days following Mrs. Thompson's visit were marked by an unsettling mix of enthusiasm and anxiety. Sarah stood at the kitchen counter one morning, coffee brewing, as she absently gazed at the scattered art supplies littering their dining table. A sketchbook lay open, its pages filled with tentative strokes, vibrant colors, and wild dots of inspiration. Each mark begged her to manifest the burgeoning artist inside, yet the weight of her reality pressed down like a leaden cloud. "Mom, can we paint more today?" Lily's voice burst through the silence, sweet and innocent, a beacon of hope in Sarah's otherwise clouded mind. Yet internally, Sarah wrestled with a storm of self-doubt. Was painting enough to inspire true learning? The societal expectations of her role as a mother and educator loomed large, ready to pull her back into its suffocating confines. "Of course, sweetie," she mustered, but uncertainty simmered just below her composed exterior. What if her colleagues resisted her attempts to merge creativity with education? Would they dismiss her as a whimsical dreamer, too detached from reality? Questions flooded her mind like a torrent, but she was determined to push through. That afternoon, Sarah decided to brave the teaching community. While scrolling through her phone, she spotted an upcoming faculty meeting, and an idea formed. What if she pitched a workshop that incorporated art within the curriculum? Art-integrated learning could become a catalyst for a broader educational shift. At least it could be for her classroom. As the meeting day arrived, Sarah's palms grew clammy, and the weight of anticipation felt almost unbearable. Standing in the front of the room, she felt tiny under the scrutinizing gaze of her peers. She opened her mouth to speak, and the words tumbled out in a rush. What if we could unlock creativity amongst our students through hands-on art projects? The initial silence was a heavy blanket. Then murmurs of confusion rippled through the room. "Don't you think that's a bit impractical?" came a voice, undoubtedly from George, the stern math teacher with a penchant for disapproval. A spiral of dread tightened around her. But just as she was about to retreat into herself, she recalled the spark of joy she felt last week with Lily. "Art can foster critical thinking," she pressed on, her voice gaining strength. "Imagine students creating visual projects to express their understanding of difficult concepts. We could reduce anxiety and promote deeper learning." Skepticism hung in the air like a thick fog, but something felt different. There was fire in her belly, no more being overshadowed by persistent doubt. Each question fired back with intensity reflected her own journey of transformation. Sarah shared her own experience of pushing through the limits that had entrapped them. "Let's try a mini-project together," she proposed, urging her colleagues to paint simple scenes that reflected their understanding of community. The hesitance in the room began to melt away, replaced gradually by curiosity. What if they surprised themselves? As paint began to flow and colors mixed on canvases, energy shifted towards the passionate exchange of ideas. Laughter erupted, and colors splashed onto prepared plans, breathing new life into what had once been a static meeting. Watching her peers engage, a warm current of hope filled Sarah. Could she actually inspire this change, this bridging of creativity and education? By the end of the workshop, a surprising number of teachers approached her with interest, their earlier skepticism giving way to respect. Perhaps the seeds of transformation had already found fertile ground. Feeling lighter, Sarah returned home that evening, her heart imbued with possibility. She and Lily embarked on another painting session, fully energized by the day's events. Yet, a new question nagged at her. Could she truly sustain this momentum, and would her newfound confidence stand the test against opposition in a more formal setting? As they painted, Lily interrupted her thoughts, a beaming smile lighting up her face. "Mom, maybe we should put our art in that show." That simple suggestion ignited a flicker of determination. She might just be ready to take that leap into the unknown, even if it meant stepping outside her comfort zone. However, just as likely, it could lead to fierce criticism. Tomorrow would be the day. Would she choose to embrace that challenge or recede into self-doubt again? The moment of truth neared, charging the air with anticipation. The morning sun streamed through the window, illuminating the kitchen in soft, golden light. Sarah felt anxiety coil within her as she prepared for the big day. She stood in the very same spot where she had often lost herself in doubt. But this time was different. The vibrant paints, the swirling colors, the joyful laughter with Lily, all echoed like reassuring whispers urging her forward. She took a deep breath, stirring her coffee, letting the aroma settle her racing thoughts. "Mom, are we really going to enter the art show?" Lily's innocent curiosity broke through her reverie, amplifying Sarah's fear. The little girl's face was a mixture of excitement and doubt, mirroring her mother's inner turmoil. Uncertainty hung in the air, pregnant with implications of vulnerability and risk. "Yes, sweetie," Sarah replied, her tone steady despite the whirlwind within. "But we must embrace it like an adventure." Lily's faith reinvigorated Sarah's spirit. However, the reality of presenting publicly twisted in her stomach. The thought of criticism from those who dismissed her ideas haunted her. In teaching, public validation felt paramount, and here was an opportunity, a stage for her creative revelations. She had ignited excitement among her colleagues, yet now she wondered if she could keep that flame alive. As the hours passed, Sarah focused not on the what-ifs that plagued her mind, but rather on the beauty of the expression she would share. She spent the morning revising her piece, meticulously blending colors, ensuring each brushstroke felt authentic, a true representation of her emotions. In the process, she unearthed a hidden strength, an undercurrent of resilience that had long lain dormant within her. Yet, as the clock ticked inexorably towards her evening reveal, familiar doubts crept back. Images of George's condescending glare flashed in her mind. Would he stand among the critics, ready to pounce on any perceived flaw in her work? The thought enveloped her in a chill, a stark reminder of how intrinsic validation felt to her success. But then, she remembered the connections forged during her workshop, the way camaraderie had blossomed in that once dismal faculty meeting. The realization that she had already triumphed alongside like-minded individuals provided her with a surge of optimism. Perhaps the very act of sharing her art was more about connection than approval. As she stepped onto the stage that evening, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Overhead lights dimmed while a spotlight fixed on her. The crowd swelled with familiar faces, each embodying a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Heart-pounding, Sarah focused on the canvas before her, its colors bursting with emotion, reflections of love, learning, and the transformative power of creativity. Art is not merely an escape. It's a path to understanding ourselves and the world around us, she articulated, her voice resonating with newfound strength. I invite you to view this piece not just as a painting, but as a conversation starter, an opportunity for connection. As she engaged the audience, the initial tension in her body loosened. The colors dripped with possibility, inviting viewers to look deeper into their meanings and challenges. Some faces softened, intrigued by her openness, while others remained stoic, perhaps skeptical. Despite the varied reactions, Sarah felt invigorated, pushing through layers of self-judgment. She shared anecdotes of her transformation, paralleling her artistic exploration with the educational journey she envisioned. Art had woven its way into her teaching philosophy, and it was time she fully embraced that fusion. Walking down from the stage, she felt lighter than air, buzzing with an invigorating blend of vulnerability and empowerment. Set against the backdrop of uncertainty, she had confronted her fears head-on. Now, the anticipation of feedback loomed like a cloud above her, promising the potential for growth. Lily rushed to her, clapping her little hands. "Mom, that was amazing! You were really brave!" The affirmation soothed Sarah's lingering doubts, but the evening carried its own weight. As attendees milled about, she caught sight of George lingering at the margins. A wave of unease washed over her. What would he say? Moments later, he approached with a measured smile, closing the distance between them. "That was unexpected, Sarah. You've managed to capture something with your art, but can it apply practically?" His question hung in the air, a challenge. The reality of her journey flashed before her. This was not simply about accolades, but about transforming understanding through creativity itself. "Perhaps the practicality lies within the very act of creation," she replied, her voice steady. "Through art, we understand ourselves, and thus we can understand the world better." George's expression shifted, intrigued yet skeptical. The challenge was set, but Sarah was ready to confront it. As she stepped away, embracing her daughter's once playful energy, she realized that her personal growth had only just begun. Tomorrow would bring new discussions, deeper inquiries, and the potential for resistance yet to unfold. With each new dawn, she would fight to redefine not only herself, but the path ahead. The real showdown with doubt was coming, and she was prepared to stand her ground, or perhaps venture even further into unknown territory. The next morning dawned with a crisp clarity that both invigorated and unsettled Sarah. The sunlight felt different, weighted with possibility and the dread of imminent confrontation. She pushed through her morning routine, every sip of coffee punctuated by the echoes of last night's discussions, particularly George's lingering skepticism. It was not just about the art any longer. It felt like a challenge to her very identity. With Lily still asleep, Sarah stood in front of her easel, an unfinished canvas staring back at her like a blank slate waiting to become something significant. As she considered what to paint, doubt clawed at her insides. Was she truly capable of creating something impactful? Or was her vision merely foolish optimism? The familiar tension in her shoulders reminded her of the previous workshop, the way the group's energy had surged when ideas were exchanged freely. What had awakened that creative spirit in her peers? Was it the act of sharing or finding validation among peers? She realized it was the dialogue, the open exchange of perspectives that had inspired not just her colleagues, but her as well. If she wanted her art to resonate, perhaps she needed to venture beyond just expression. What if she turned this experience into a platform for discourse? A spark ignited within her, a desire not just to paint, but to draw her audience into active participation. With newfound determination, she grabbed a brush and began to lay color on the canvas, vivid strokes of orange and blue that danced fiercely, embodying the evolution of her awakening. However, the day bleeded into uncertainty when she returned to school. The faculty lounge buzzed with conversations, but the energy felt palpably different. Sarah took a deep breath before entering, recalling the warmth of shared laughter from the night before. But George, with his penetrating gaze, cut through her optimism like a knife. "Here comes the artist," he announced, his tone feigning camaraderie but underscored with a taunting inflection. "Ready to convince us that creativity has a real-world application?" His question stung. Sarah clenched her fists, feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. But this time, she had the resolve not to shrink back. "It does, George. Creativity drives innovation, collaboration, and understanding. If you can't see that, perhaps you're missing a fundamental truth." A silence fell over the room, breaths held in anticipation of George's witty retort. Yet, he seemed taken aback, the raised eyebrows signaling a flicker of respect. Or was it surprise? Encouraged by her unexpected retort, Sarah shifted her strategy. She laughed lightly in an attempt to diffuse the tension. "How about we all sit down and have a discussion about what art means to us, not just what it looks like?" A chorus of murmurs followed, some enthusiastic, others skeptical. "You're suggesting a round table?" her colleague Jenna asked, a spark of intrigue in her voice. "Yes. Let's explore how art influences our practices and perhaps even share our creative processes," Sarah replied, her heart bouncing with rising courage. This would not just be her showing off her art, it would be a movement to cultivate dialogue. Days passed, and Sarah diligently gathered her colleagues, preparing them for what would unfold. The first roundtable would take place next week. She had written down probing questions, designed to incite introspection and compelling conversations. How does our experience with art shape our engagements with students? Can we bridge that passion into our curriculum? Yet, just as excitement started to bloom, a dark cloud settled over her thoughts. What if George undermined her efforts? He was astute, and if anyone could manipulate the discussion, it would be him. But was that enough to turn her from this path? Determined, Sarah found herself casting a glance at the unfinished canvas in her studio. It was more than a painting. It was a catalyst for change she had only begun to explore. She grabbed her brush and began to paint again, but now each stroke seemed to embody her resolve. Her phone buzzed, breaking her concentration. It was a message from Lily. "Mom, can you come home early? I have something to tell you." The tension in her chest tightened as her mind whirled. What could it be? With each step she took toward home, uncertainty swirled in her thoughts. The day's achievements felt trivial compared to what awaited her. Was this new journey of professional discovery now going to intertwine with a personal revelation that could alter everything? As she entered her house, a strange and charged energy filled the air. The moment felt surreal, and as she walked into the living room, she glimpsed Lily's face, alight with inexplicable joy, mixed with some underlying apprehension. "What is it, honey?" Sarah asked, her heart pounding. Lily took a deep breath, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "I figured something out, Mom. Something big about art, about us." The revelation hung between them like an unpainted canvas, pregnant with potential and mystery. What could it mean for their lives, their journey together? The moment had arrived, and Sarah felt a crackling energy building as they stood on the precipice of something unknown. The air thrummed with anticipation, yet an uncertainty cloaked the room like a shadow. Sarah leaned in closer, feeling the thrum of her heart syncopate with the energy vibrating between them. "What is it, Lily? You're making me nervous," she said, striving to maintain a calm exterior while an avalanche of thoughts surged within. Lily smiled, an almost vibrant glow radiating from her. "I've always loved painting, right? Well, I realized that not only do I want to paint, but I also want to create art that tells stories. Stories about who we are, what we've been through, like how you inspire me. I think we could do something together, Mom." The notion struck Sarah like a bolt of lightning, illuminating a world of possibilities she hadn't permitted herself to consider before. "Together?" she asked. "Yeah! What if we combined our perspectives, your experience and my fresh view? We could explore themes of creativity and legacy, or how art can be a voice for both of us," Lily said, her enthusiasm palpable. A rush of warmth enveloped Sarah, tempered by a dagger of fear. This partnership could redefine her whole identity, both as an artist and as a mother. Was it selfish to feel anxious about being compared to her daughter's untapped potential? Could she rise to meet this challenge, not only as a professional, but also nurturing Lily's own artistic exploration? With that thought rattling inside her, Sarah clutched her own insecurities tightly, the words spilling out. "What if I pull you down, Lily? What if I can't keep up with your ideas or your vision? I don't want to stifle you." Lily's gaze held steady. "Mom, you won't. I want to soak up your wisdom and skills. Plus, you've had years of experience in the world of art. I know we'll help each other grow." A flicker of recognition sparked in Sarah's mind. This wasn't solely about her. It also represented an opportunity, one that could transform their dynamic, helping both mother and daughter to evolve as creatives. "So, what do you have in mind? How do we start?" Sarah asked, intrigued and apprehensive all at once. "Maybe we can create a series. Each piece could focus on a different story, a journey. We can scale the colors and emotions, intertwining our styles. What do you think?" The excitement coursed through Sarah's veins, igniting a hunger she had nearly forgotten. This was no longer that solitary, unfinished canvas. Now, it was a painting rich with layers and depth, connected and vibrant. Outside the confines of fear, the thought of merging their artistry felt electrifying. "All right, let's set some objectives. We need to map out our vision first," Sarah offered, a firmness settling into her demeanor. Lily beamed. "Yes, and we can plan our time together. Maybe a few nights a week. I can set up our work area in the spare bedroom." As the evening wore on, brainstorming turned into laughter, reflection, and a profound connection. The art Sarah had always imagined had now transformed into a communal journey, instilling a sense of purpose she never anticipated finding. But amid the excitement, a shadow lingered in the back of Sarah's mind. The inevitable confrontation awaited her at work. George's skepticism had stoked her flames for change, but the fear of ridicule still loomed. If she dove into this new venture, what authority would she have to lead a discussion about creativity, both with her colleagues and within her own family? "Can we talk about your upcoming roundtable too?" Lily asked, breaking her train of thought. "I mean, I love how you want to foster dialogue. Maybe I could share my ideas there too." "Wow. I didn't even consider that," Sarah said, her brow furrowing. This brought her back to a reality she distanced herself from. Leading that discussion, even if it was blossoming into something special, now felt like standing in front of a panel of critics. Would she be able to articulate her ideas without faltering? "Mom!" Lily's voice cut through the haze of anxiety wrapping around Sarah. "What's wrong?" "I just can't shake this fear, honey. What if we're not ready? What if George tries to counter everything we stand for?" "But what if he doesn't?" Lily countered, her voice piercing through Sarah's doubts with clarity. "Maybe he'll see things differently when we show him how art can impact teaching. We need to believe in it first, believe in ourselves." Her daughter's conviction pushed Sarah a little closer to clarity, a recognition that their shared journey wouldn't just be about overcoming expectations, but also affirming their artistic legacies. The coming days promised a whirlwind of creativity, discourse, and self-discovery. Yet as excitement coursed between them, outlining their potential collaborations, a creeping uncertainty persisted. If they needed to navigate this complex landscape of art and education, was Sarah truly prepared to stand at the forefront? As her thoughts coalesced, she felt a surge of courage might be required, not merely to face George and her colleagues, but to confront all the insecurities she had buried. Each brushstroke until now was just preparation for what lay ahead. "Let's dive in, together. But it means facing whatever repercussions arise head-on," she proposed, meeting Lily's eager gaze. Lily nodded, inspiration radiating. With uncertainty still circling overhead, Sarah knew the moment for something transformative wasn't merely creeping. It was here, at the threshold, laden with possibility. The air hummed with an electric energy, urging them to create, as if the universe itself awaited the results of their collaboration. Eager anticipation intertwined with fear and resolve, she realized they were just beginning a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew. Would this collaboration give her the strength to withstand the scrutiny to come, solidifying both her artistic identity and her bond with Lily? Or would their venture into shared creativity only amplify the stakes at work, risking everything she'd held dear once more? The vibrancy of the fusion between their artistic voices beckoned, but what awaited them at the round table, the confrontation with George and the scrutiny of her peers, felt like a vast, uncharted territory. Days turned into a blur of canvases, sketches, and late-night brainstorming sessions. Sarah found herself immersed in a force she had long denied. The thrill of creativity was returning, and with it, a burgeoning confidence. As she and Lily pieced together their plans for the art series, each interaction unveiled her daughter's potential. Brilliant, raw, and unafraid. Yet, as the promise of their collaborative journey swelled, so did Sarah's anxiety about the impending roundtable. With every brushstroke, doubt gnawed at her. Questions circled relentlessly. Was she really capable of heading this discussion? Could she genuinely harness her experiences and guide others in exploring their own creativity? Standing before her colleagues felt like preparing for the worst kind of performance, one where failure left no room for redemption. Lily's enthusiasm never faltered, a steady beacon in the turmoil of Sarah's mind. After dinner, they set up their makeshift studio in the spare bedroom. The room transformed into a vibrant explosion of color, strewn with brushes, palettes, and sketches that captured their evolving ideas. "Let's start with our first piece," Lily suggested, her finger tracing over a blank canvas. "Maybe something that captures the essence of our journey?" Sarah nodded, but the inner turmoil echoed louder. Dark clouds of doubt gathered as she considered how much of her past and struggles she would expose. What if my story isn't good enough? The question slipped out before she could stop herself, the weight of it hanging in the air. Lily turned, her expression a mix of confusion and gentle resolve. Mom, your experiences are what will make this honest and impactful. You can't be afraid of showcasing your past. It might help someone else. The revelation hit hard. This collaboration could be more than just art. It was a chance to confront her fears, her insecurities, and perhaps to reveal her vulnerabilities as a source of strength. But would that be enough in the professional realm, especially against George's skepticism? With newfound determination, Sarah picked up a brush, visually drawing strength from her daughter's unwavering belief. They began layering colors, each stroke echoing the vibrancy of their evolving relationship. The stories intertwined on the canvas, revealing more than they had anticipated. As they worked late into the evening, the world outside faded, replaced by laughter, creativity, and a growing commitment to one another. Yet deep down, a ticking clock echoed. The round table imminent confrontation gnawed at her resolve, whispering reminders of George's sardonic critiques. That night, sleep eluded Sarah. Thoughts ricocheted like loose paint on an art studio floor. She questioned not only her professional prowess, but who she wanted to be. An artist who defined herself by the shadows of others, or one who emerged unfiltered and unapologetic about her journey. No longer able to ignore the relentless tide of emotions, she finally reached for her notebook. Sketching furiously, she captured the essence of her insecurities, her fears, and, most importantly, her aspirations. Each line conflicted but harmonious, revealing a truth she had kept hidden even from herself. As dawn broke, Sarah stared at what lay before her, a piece that was raw, genuine, and distinctly hers. It was more than just art. It was a narrative laden with hope, a visual reminder of where she had been and where she was headed. "Mom, you have to show this at the round table," Lily's voice chimed in, breaking her reverie. "It's powerful." The challenge of presenting her vulnerability to an audience of peers was monumental, yet it felt like stepping onto a stage, the spotlight beckoning her to share not only her artistry, but also her truth. Will it be enough? She wondered aloud, the flicker of doubt still lurking. Absolutely. You've taught me that stories matter, especially the hard ones. This is your story. Lily reaffirmed, her gaze unyielding. With the round table hours away, the question shifted. Could this mark the moment where Sarah finally stepped into her own narrative, braving the doubts, embracing vulnerability, and connecting both as an artist and a mother? With her heart galloping, she prepared for the discussion that would undoubtedly challenge every facet of her beliefs. The round table was not merely a professional task, it had the potential to redefine her entirely. As she tightened her grip on the brush one last time, Sarah felt a pulse of conviction blaze within. This collaboration pushed her not just to create, but to confront, and in that confrontation lay the promise of discovery, not just of her art, but of herself. Would she seize this opportunity to become the mentor she aspired to be, or would the shadows of doubt consume her yet again? With the ticking clock harmonizing with her heartbeat, an electric energy crackled in the air, urging her to act, to reveal that her voice mattered, and the consequences be damned. The moment to confront the truth had arrived, but would she find the courage to rise when it mattered most? The early morning light trickled through the curtains, casting uneven shadows across the workspace. Sarah's pulse quickened as she glanced at the clock, knowing the time had come for her to emerge from the cocoon of doubt into the harsh, illuminating light of reality. Each brushstroke that lay dried on the canvas felt like a seed of potential, waiting to bloom, yet tethered by the fear of exposure. She stood, the piece she had created a testament to her journey, and approached the mirror on the wall. Staring into her reflection, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. She was a blend of hesitant brush marks and hesitant hope. "Is this really me?" she whispered, the question reverberating through the walls of her mind. The woman in the mirror held tales of struggle, resilience, and aspiration. But was that enough to validate her voice among critical peers? With every fiber of her being, she wanted to scream, to break free from the self-imposed chains of uncertainty. Yet, as she rehearsed her introduction mentally, her confidence began to wane. Panic pressed against her chest, squeezing the air from her lungs. Art is not just struggle, Lily had told her. It's also triumph. Yet each success story she imagined became marred by the specter of criticism. George's doubts echoed like a refrain in her mind, sowing discord where clarity was needed. Would he see the merit in her vulnerability? Or would he dismiss it, reducing her efforts to mere sentimentality? The thought struck hard, forcing Sarah to sit down at the edge of her bed, heart racing as she clutched a nearby sketchbook. A burst of inspiration ignited within her, and she flipped open the pages filled with scribbles and half-formed ideas. Each line seemed to vibrate with potential, slashing through her worries, whispering truths she had hidden. "I'm not just an artist," she muttered to herself, clenching the pencil until her knuckles turned white. "I'm a navigator of my own truth." Suddenly, flashes of her past flickered in her mind, memories colliding vividly. Her first strokes on canvas as a nervous teenager, the exhilaration of creating art, and the stinging pain of rejection. Each moment catalogued her journey, not merely as an artist, but as a contributor to her own narrative, a narrative that couldn't be dismissed. At that moment, she understood she wouldn't merely be presenting art. She would unveil a chapter of her existence, landscape laden with triumphs and trials. This wasn't a performance to elicit applause. It was a bridge built for understanding, a pathway beckoning others to traverse alongside her. As she scheduled her thoughts for the day, a slow confidence began to spread like paint across the canvas. "This is your safe space," she reminded herself, "and it deserves to be seen." Rising, she took a deep breath, grounded by her resolve. She would take Lily's belief in her, and in that belief, plant her own. This required a turn in her internal narrative, embracing the strength of her vulnerabilities instead of skirting around them. The world needed to hear her raw, unfiltered story. The sun crested the horizon, flooding the room in gold as Sarah tightened her grip on both her sketchbook and the brush that would accompany her to the round table. The art series was their combined journey, but this presentation, this was her solitary battle, and she intended to fight it. With a final glance at her canvas, she felt the momentum shift. The murmur of self-doubt quieted, an internal chorus of determination swelling to take its place. There was no turning back now. As she strode out of the bedroom, ready to face the day, a nagging thought surfaced. Was she really prepared to share everything? The answer was still murky, but one thing was clear. She was going to show up, unapologetically herself, ready to be a voice for others still lost in their narratives. The question loomed large in her mind as she prepared to step into the round table. What would George's reaction be? Would he tear apart her vision, or would he be unable to resist the honesty behind it? The stakes were high, and as she walked out the door, she knew the moment had finally come to confront not just her colleagues, but the doubts lingering dangerously close to her own heart. With each step toward the discussion, she could feel the weight of her story, ready to transcend the fear that had burdened her for so long. Would this act of vulnerability be her liberation or her undoing? As Sarah entered the faculty meeting room, the atmosphere crackled with anticipation. Her colleagues, seated around the table, represented a spectrum of skepticism and curiosity. Each face carried shades of doubt, yet her resolve held firm as she set down her supplies. The unfinished canvas and presentation materials laid a visual testament to her intent. "Thank you all for being here today. I'm excited to explore something new with you," she began, her voice steady and clear. "Art can be a powerful method of learning, and I believe we can use it to enrich our teaching practices." A ripple of murmur coursed through the room, with George's pointed expression emphasizing the tension. Art is nice in theory, Sarah, but how will it help our students pass standardized tests? He challenged, a familiar note of disapproval lining his tone. The question hung in the air like an unwelcoming fog, but Sarah met it head-on, recalling Lily's spirited enthusiasm and support. It's not just about passing tests, George. It's about helping our students find their voices. Creativity can foster critical thinking and problem-solving skills, which not only prepare them for exams but for life. She gestured to the canvas and began her visual presentation, showing works that blended narrative with educational themes. With each image, she painted a picture of what could be achieved when students learned to express themselves through art. As she spoke, something shifted. Faces that had been skeptical began to lean in, some nodding at the synergy of Sarah's ideas and the vibrant works before them. She felt a growing warmth extend from the canvases to the audience, invoking the deeper layers of her message. One that intertwined her journey with their potential discoveries. Art isn't simply an add-on to our curriculum. It's an access route to critical engagement. Consider how we can empower our students by intertwining art with history or literature. Picture them painting historical events or creating visual essays. It fosters a connection that mere memorization cannot achieve, Sarah stated with fervor. A low murmur of interest rippled through the audience. Questions began to emerge, not harsh or critical, but genuine inquiries delving into the hows and whys of integrating art. The discussion deepened, transforming from doubt into collaborative questioning, igniting a spark of curiosity that filled the room. Sarah, it sounds interesting, but how do we handle the logistics? Jenna chimed in, a hopeful tone breaking through the previous tension. I've developed a few lessons that incorporate art across various subjects. I would love to share them and would encourage everyone to contribute their ideas as well, she said, the eagerness making her pulse quicken. As the discussion continued and flourished, Sarah recognized a powerful turnaround. No longer was she a lone voice battling against ingrained skepticism, but rather a facilitator of ideas, inspirations, and possibilities being welcomed into the fold. Amid the engaging conversation, George remained silent. But as the session winded down, he finally spoke. All right, Sarah, I see merit in what you're proposing. Let's put together a pilot project and see what it yields. The room erupted in a mix of affirmation and excitement. Sarah felt a rush of joy, a moment of recognition not just from George, but from her peers who now understood that creativity could coexist with educational rigor. As she packed up her materials, a wave of adrenaline coursed through her. This experience had flourished beyond her wildest expectations, transforming from trepidation into empowerment. She had conquered doubt and had expanded her professional landscape with newfound creativity, and by doing so, had fostered a collaboration that would undoubtedly ripple through their teaching community. When she returned home that evening, Lily was waiting in their makeshift studio, the remnants of their earlier work scattered around. Mom, how did it go? Beyond amazing, Lily. We're starting an art integration project. It seems like everyone is on board. Sarah beamed, pride swelling in her chest. You did it, Lily shrieked, rushing into her mother's arms. Yes, precisely because I didn't try to hold back this time, Sarah replied, a sense of profound fulfillment radiating from within her. As they celebrated, Sarah recognized this moment as a shift. Her personal journey connected not only to her artistry, but also fundamentally altered her role as an educator. No longer constrained by apprehension, she embraced both parts of her identity with confidence, collaborating with her daughter as they embarked on a shared artistic mission. The true resolution lay beyond the round table. It blended the personal with the professional in a tapestry of accomplishments and transformations. Each brushstroke on their canvas encapsulated their growth. Sarah had not only embraced the legacy of creativity passed down from her mother, but had now become a beacon of support and inspiration for her own daughter. Let's paint our next piece together, Lily. Sarah proposed, her heart aligned with renewed purpose. As they gathered their supplies, she fully embraced the path they were traveling, one of creativity, resilience, and hope. Each brush would forge a connection, not only representing their struggles and dreams, but anchoring their future endeavors. In this intertwining of artistry and education, they would cultivate a legacy of passion, one that would flourish for generations to come. As they dove back into their creative exploration, Sarah knew this was not simply an ending, but a beautiful beginning, one where they could shine unapologetically as both artists and educators. This is your moment. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss more exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about this conclusion, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation. Don't wait even one more second. Be part of this journey of personal overcoming together.